Well,
Oh.
or they do. I remember one piece I wrote that was about sewing and uh, how women were cut off from their expressive outlets. So my mother, for instance, sewed and then would wait to hear what the review was of the outfit I wore to school was like. And so many people would come up to me after I read that poem at a reading and talk about their own experiences. So there's a connection. And then other times, one little piece in a vast work is what really echoes with people. And
Mhm.
unfortunately, sometimes that can be really embarrassing because remember, I write romance. So
Mhm.
I can write hundreds of pages, and the 3 pages of the sex scene in the gas station is what people want to talk about. So
Right.
you just never really know what's going
Mhm.
to have an impact.
True.
And I imagine that with both of you, people probably try to want to put what you're writing in your lives. Like I said, just because you write it, I mean, yes, a lot of writing comes from the heart and comes from our own experiences, but there's also our observations of other people. So sometimes what you're writing
Mhm.
is something that you have nothing that's happening in your life whatsoever. So like you said, you
Right.
mentioned you write romance
Oh,
novels, and some
sure.
of these novels are, I mean, you're longtime married, so some of these have nothing to do with your current relationship or anything, but people automatically want to put that in there. And I imagine the same with you, Jackie, that folks are ready to make assumptions based on what you're writing that may not be
Oh yeah.
based
Mhm.
on what's happening in your own life.
Oh,
Exactly.
sure.
That's true. Yeah. That every poem that I write is about me,
Oh, sure. Everything you
and
write is
yeah.
ultimately about you.
Yeah, but a lot of poems are not about me. I mean, a lot of poems are, documenting. It's a documentary poem. It's
Sure.
documenting, historical or current event, or something that I want to, to write about. I recently I have a new manuscript, and one of the poems in it is "Letter from the Elder Daughter of the Confederacy."
Oh, wow.
Um, so, and I think it's important. People want to see themselves sometimes when they're listening.
Yeah.
They really. I think poetry does that for a lot of people, is they want to see themselves. I don't think. I mean, I know when I'm reading. I want to be transported by fiction, or short stories or a novel. I think when people are listening to poetry, for some people, they
Mhm.
really are looking for that connection,
Hmm.
for that, commonality sometimes.
Yeah, because I would agree with you. Because when you read a book and a novel, you definitely want to go someplace else. I mean, I'm a big fan. I hate that she didn't make it to the letter Z of Sue Grafton, but that's because I know that when I read those novels, I'm going to get a whole very interesting kind of detective life, and the protagonist of the whole book is very much of a kind of neurotic and interesting personality. So it's, while she's solving
Yeah.
these cases, she's doing it in such an interesting way, and it makes it very much something that you want to stay engaged with all the way to the end.
Yeah, it lets you experience something vicariously. I mean, you can be in danger and not in danger. Absolutely. When I get a lot of my ideas mostly from observation. I'm a terrible eavesdropper. Grocery store lines, bars. You get some great snippets. I've gotten some odd couple love stories that came out of a poetry reading observation. Um, Weird things I covered as a reporter, like a woman who owned the old prison electric chair and kept it in her backyard, or a guy whose life work was trying to grow the world's largest string bean. Those all make great stories eventually. Or what if stories, like random stuff you wonder about. Things like, what if somebody on a dating site got matched with Bigfoot? Or what if a millennial woke up one day and everything out of her mouth was trite instead of smart and edgy? And those are stories I've written. Um, Lots of experiences in North Carolina make for terrific stories. That's why the Southern Gothic did so well.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, definitely. How much of your experience, Jackie, has been from just things that you've observed, like Nancy said, where you might have eavesdropped on a conversation that people might not even know that you're actually there and paying attention to what they're doing, whether that's at Starbucks or whether that's at your local restaurant?
Well, that happens to me. I mean, Nancy's absolutely right. I mean, when I'm teaching, I tell all levels of writers and different kinds of writers that they should use their journals. Well, I don't tell them they should, but I use my journals like a bank account, and we're constantly making deposits. So, you know, I'm in a nail salon, and I'm, like, watching, you know, a woman who's very, very interesting, you know, her, you know what I mean? Like, people walk in, and like, their whole face is a narrative, you know what I'm saying? Or there's a story, the way they're walking, or the way they're interfacing with other people. So, you know, I go to the grocery store. I'm like you. I'm always listening, and sometimes it's one line. Sometimes it's a paragraph. But I make those deposits, and they're great triggers, and they generate sometimes amazing bodies of work and poems for me. The other daughter of the Confederacy just was inspired. I was watching the Silent Sam come down on TV, on the news, and this poem just, like, started rolling, you know? So, you know, all of these triggers are available to us if we are just, you know, we're just paying attention. And, you know, writers see, hear, experience everything else on a totally hypersensitive level, you know.
Writers don't turn it off. That's
right. We don't. Yeah, but you're right.
And not turn it off. How are you able to deal with this kind of society that we're in? Both of you have, well, you definitely, Jackie, and I think you and Nancy to some degree have alluded to it. We're in this kind of like crazy anti-creative environment. It doesn't help that the person at the top, I don't think, really likes creativity. So even though he created his own TV show, but that's a whole other story. But it tends to be very much anti-creative. So how do you, when you can't turn it off, how do you cope with what's going on in society when it seems like so much of the things that we care about, whether it's issues like immigration or prison reform or things like that, or whether it's just creativity in general, are being under attack?
Well, that's an interesting question. I think we have to give permission to feel like we're under attack. I've never really felt that I was under attack. I think that for years I had to work. So just the fact that I lived in a culture as a divorced mom needing money, you know, to support my family, I had to work. So my creative side, I allowed it to show up in the work that I did. I mean, you know, I've had some interesting jobs. So I was able to be as creative, you know, and then coming home and writing books. But I thrive through my work. My writing is really kind of my solace. So I kind of don't have to always, you know, like I know these things exist. But again, when we talked a little while ago about what are the containers that we build, and that's where my poetry goes. You know, I mean, you can only shout but so loud and for so long at a rally. But I think for me personally, my art is resistance. You know, my art is my revolution. It's my way of showing up in the world and demanding space in the world and demanding respect and demanding that my voice be heard.
I so agree with you. When you write, it's there forever.
Mm-hmm.
Words just evaporate, but words on paper are there for everyone for all time. Mm-hmm. And writing is the very best revenge.
Mhm. Yes.
Yeah. If I'm really angry about an issue, I'll write about it, and it's therapeutic, cathartic.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Yes, it winds up being another form of therapy for sure. And it helps you release some of that pressure that you're thinking about with that, whatever the issue is. So I imagine it helps you in those kind of senses like you were talking about, Nancy. And I'm going to put you on the spot, too, because I put Jaki on the spot earlier, so I can't let you off. We still got 15 minutes, so I cannot let you off without doing at least a passage. It could be the romantic ghost part. It could be whatever you feel like, but you need to give us a sample of your work as well.
Well, would you like to hear something from one of the novels?
Please, let's do something from the novel.
Okay.
Jaki, we'll hear a novel from you.
I can either do a novel or a poem, whichever you'd rather.
Let's hear a passage from a novel.
Novel? Okay. This is the heroine who sees things and wishes she doesn't, and it takes place in Raleigh, in Oakwood Cemetery. She has a son named DJ, and she just discovered has a paranormal hearing disability too. We stood outside the iron fence that separated the living of Oakwood from the dead. Here was the final resting place of North Carolina icons like Jim Valvano, Jesse Helms, and Elizabeth Edwards. This seemed a safe place to start, since we had at least 40 feet separating us from the nearest grave. I took Otto's leash in a firm grasp. Okay, DJ, here's the deal. I refused to flinch as a figure in a Confederate uniform floated across the frozen lawn. Today, you're going to learn the art of filtering, an important life skill for anyone with special talents. I took a shaky step towards the fence. You know I see things, right? I can't unsee them. But that doesn't mean I have to let on that I see them, because if you do that, you'll just encourage them. I'm figuring the same thing goes for hearing. DJ hung back, his expression shifting from scorn to total discomfort. Come on, Mom. This is stupid. Let's go home. We will soon. Just hang on for a little while. Farther down the path, a transparent figure in a full skirt sat staring towards the funeral arch. Okay, kid. See that bench down there? There's something on that bench that you don't see. If it looks up at us and we react, it's going to come closer. We don't want that. Ever. So watch what I do when the thing on the bench looks our way. The ghost stood up at the sound of my voice. I kept my expression blank and let my gaze wander over and past her, as if she were just part of the landscape. There, see how it's done? I hissed. DJ backed away from the fence and stared at me. What kind of mother are you? He sputtered. Behind him, Otto whimpered and shook. I kept my tone low, but couldn't hide its intensity. The kind of mother that knows her duty is to keep you safe, and this is how we're going to do it. I gripped his arm as he tried to turn away. Soldiers train. Athletes train. So will you. Think of this as cemetery boot camp.
Okay. And definitely, your stories always capture those attention and get you to think about things. And I know one of the things that got me to think about was just the fact that a lot of times we have to honor even our ancestors, because I think you even talk about that in some of your poetry, Jaki, with our creativity. Because I sometimes think that we lose track of the connection between that is gone and that is here. So definitely, Nancy covered that in that short story. But I was wondering, don't you think that that's part of what the griot does, is being in tune with the ancestors? Because I sometimes think that even though he's been gone now a year and a half, Baba Chuck still talks to us on a regular basis.
Right. Yeah, I'm never that far away from, I think the world, how can I say this? I think that world of our ancestors is very much a living space, and I know that I like to think of something sometimes called genetic deja vu, when I know that I'm being directed, informed, I'm having an experience that's not necessarily my experience, but it's an ancestor that's I've written a few stories in spaces that I had to do the research